And hey everybody, I hope you guys can hear me. This is George Ellis from Lean Focus, and we're just starting our webinar, and we've run into a couple of technical difficulties, but I think we're catching up okay. Let's see. So today's webinar is on how to bring clarity to the fuzzy front end with the project requirements Kaizen. And for those of you that have done projects and you've had problems with scope creep, or you've had problems where there's been confusion about exactly what are we doing on a project, or maybe you planned out a project and you got partway through the project, perhaps you have dealt with the problem of not having a project well defined and then trying to figure it out midway. And if you've done that before, you know it's tough. So what we're going to talk about today is how to define your project really well in the beginning, and in that way set yourself up for success through the life of the project. Before I get started, let's see, I think we can go ahead and get started. You are here, this is proprietary information. It's for you. There's a link that each of you has to for this webinar, and we'd appreciate it if you we'd appreciate it if you would keep it confidential. And if you know somebody else that would like to view this webinar, they can just go to leanfocus.com, go to Thought Leadership, and they can sign up and get their own link. Let me just take a moment and talk about the logistics of a webinar. So the folks that are on the phone are in listen-only mode, and you can send chats and I can see them. And we'll take questions. At the end, I'll answer questions, but feel free to send questions through the chat at any point. And there are PDF handouts that are available. If you go into the GoToMeeting control box, you'll be able to see where you can download 5 handouts that support this webinar. The Q&A, as I said, will come up at the end. And today we have a really special situation. I'm giving a Kaizen with a company, and they've agreed to join me for the Kaizen in person. So for the first time, I'm doing a webinar, and I don't just have a camera to look at. I have smiling faces, well, mostly smiling, looking back at me. That's a little bit different. And we'll also be taking live questions here in the room, shared with the chat questions. So let's see, and there will be a recording of this available to you. It'll come to your email in about a day or so. So if you're and check your spam folder if you're looking for it. So before I jump into the Kaizen, just take a couple minutes and talk about Lean Focus, and just give you guys a little bit of information about what we do. So we basically we think about driving lean transformation as having driven leaders, people who you need to lead the lean process, and there's no replacement for having strong leadership. We have guiding principles. We have 14 guiding principles that we believe are the definition of lean, so we're able to help with culture transformation by using these guiding principles. And I work in innovation, so I work basically in new product development, everything from segmentation out to did we get the product to market? Did it work? Did we make money? Were we happy we did it? But those 14 principles are the same whether you're doing that or working in sales or working in human resources or working on a factory floor. Those principles are the same. And you guys can see I'm having a little trouble with my webcam, so we won't have a webcam today. And then we have proven systems. So the systems that you see are built from Lean Focus is a group of consultants, and we have I think just about every one of us has decades of experience in driving lean transformation, and so the sum total of the company, I've never added it up. It has to be a couple of centuries. We provide proven systems, and so when you see something that when we provide systems for people, they've been used before, they're proven successful. We're not doing a lot of experiments. We're using tried and true principles. And Lean Focus has 8 practice areas, and so the one we're talking about today is there at the 8 o'clock position. That's innovation. and that's the group that I lead. We have a procurement group that can help you in those areas. We have a lean group, which is really based in the factory. Growth, you see at the 12 o'clock position, is really around sales and bringing lean thinking to sales. We have an M&A group that can help with mergers, and we have a talent solution group. So we actually also have a whole group dedicated to finding lean leaders and being able to help you find the people that you need for the positions for the transformation that you want to accomplish. We have focused solutions, which basically is we license our material. And also, just in the last quarter or so, we've been releasing a set of software called Resultware, which is a tool that complements lean thinking and takes a lot of the waste out of the current tool set, which is, for most companies, basically Excel. And then leadership. We can assist in leadership, and we can train leaders, and all the way up from how you build strategy planning to how you plan your strategy, how you deploy it. And how leaders get out and lead from the front. Teaching leaders how to be problem solvers, how to come down and help people do the work they need to do, and be those real lean leaders that move companies forward. So those are our 8 areas. We have a lot of companies that we've worked with, but I love this slide because it shows the different businesses that we've worked with. There's a hypothesis that lean thinking can work anywhere, but to me, this is the evidence for that hypothesis. We work with medical devices, we work with industrial, and we work in people who are where there's not a product at all, private equity. We work in aerospace, distribution. We work with all sorts of businesses, people in all sorts of sectors. We apply the same principles, really, that came out of a century ago, out of the Toyota production system, and has now come to be known in the West as lean thinking. We apply it, and we see sustained growth, we see sustained improvement, and my favorite is we see sustained engagement improvement. One of my favorite things about the job is watching people come to work over 6 months and enjoying work more because they're doing the things that really bring value and the things they wanted to do. So I think at any level, however you think about lean, it's a very valuable management method for any company. At Lean Focus, we have a Lean Focus business system, and you can see we break it across the top basically into growth, which is a combination of innovation, where you're growing through new product development and through sales. And you can see there, I know these words are small and hard to read, and that's okay. There's no, you don't need to read them. What we want you to see is there's a diligent set of tools underneath each of the areas, and you can see ours is today is highlighted in red, project requirements Kaizen. That's just one of many of the tools that we have in growth and lean. In the lean systems, you're really thinking about generally you're looking at the factory floor, and then in leadership, we're thinking about, what about the senior leadership team? At the bottom is foundational tools that everybody needs to learn how to use and wants to, it's all basic, it's all part of basic lean thinking, like the Kaizen event that I'm participating in this week. And there's several other, as you can see, several other foundational tools. And then there's the 14 guiding principles, which I'm a huge believer in. Every Kaizen I do, I always go over the 14 principles, which I did yesterday here, because those are the things that really make lean thinking different. If you just jump in and start making changes, how is your thinking different than it was before, and how will things not turn out like they did? Well, the 14 principles is how we use to help create change. And so this is me. This is, I guess, the only picture you're going to get of me today. I spent 30 years in R&D and finally wound up leading one of the opcos at Danaher. I was the global VP leader for a company called X-Rite. Did that for about 3 years as we led a lean transformation. I watched the transformation, and what happened to me was I really got bit by a bug, because I watched the change. I watched the people. I watched us hitting goals, and I watched how different it is when you have a group of engineers that comes in, and not just engineers, but product developers and everybody in the company. But of course, I was focused on the innovation side, and I watched how lean changed them. And I watched how not just in that they worked harder or did more, but that they were more satisfied with their work. It didn't hurt that we had a lot fewer people leaving the company after we did the lean transformation, and our engagement scores, as measured by a third party year after year, went dramatically up. And I credit it all to lean thinking. And I decided I just want to do this with every day of my life for the rest of my career. And had an opportunity. Thank you, Damon. I know you're on the phone. I had an opportunity to join Damon's group and just do this every day, and it's been absolutely fabulous. Today, we're going to talk about the problem of product requirements Kaizen. I want to talk to you a little bit about lean, and first we're going to talk about what the problem is. What problem are we trying to solve? By the way, that's a phrase I recommend anytime you're taking up a new topic or somebody shows you a new tool or you look at a new product. What problem are we trying to solve? It's amazing how easy it is to start reaching for solutions without understanding the problems. We'll go into a little bit of discussion, general lean discussion about symptoms, problems, and root causes and value and waste. I have to make a few apologies to the group in the room because this was also in the first part of our Kaizen yesterday, so some folks are hearing this for a second time, so apologies about that. And then we'll jump into what is product requirements Kaizen and how can we you know, what is different about it from what most people do in projects. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps, and then we'll save some time to answer a few questions. You know, what I'd like to begin with is how does lean thinking work in innovation? Because one of the things I learned when I joined Lean Focus is most people, when you say we're doing lean thinking and innovation, their first question is, you know, like, how would you do that? You know, are you guys gonna, you know, are you guys gonna go do 5 S's on people's desks and you know, put a tape, use tape to outline where the stapler should go? You know, are you gonna apply? In other words, are you gonna apply factory tools to innovation thinking? And the answer is absolutely not. It's the same thinking, but it's a completely different application. And so we use solid lean thinking and innovation, but we don't use any factory tools. And so what I wanted to show you was like, how does that work? And so think of it at 3 different levels. First off, there's an annual strategy level. So think about strategy deployment. Maybe your organization has a formal strategy planning session. A lot do. Fewer have strategy deployment, which is where you take your strategy and then you break it into basically month-long pieces that you can manage, even week by week, manage that to make sure that strategy gets deployed. That's sometimes called Hoshinkanri. That's what Toyota called it. It's called strategy deployment with us. Some people call it policy deployment. It goes by many names. But when you're in strategy deployment, you're looking at what do I have to do to grow, and what are my growth needs, and how am I going to get there? And when new products come in, they almost always come in as we need growth. Okay, sometimes people will talk about we need to expand margin or EBITDA, but most of the time when there's an initiative that comes out of strategy deployment, it comes out in the form of we need growth revenue from new product. Now, if I go a little bit further down and say, okay, what form does that take? Almost always, it's in one of these 4 forms that you see here in the second, in that second row of orange boxes. Either we need to do an initiative that grows our funnel strength, that we go out and get better technology, we get more understanding of the market, that we reach out into different markets, that we go to new geographies where there are new requirements. Somehow we're going to go out and create a new product roadmap that's going to bring us a lot of value in the future. The second way it happens is we're going to increase project value. I hear so many times leaders talking about how they don't feel like their innovation organization listens to customers well. And what I mean by that is we come out with a product, customers seem to be, you know, either it's ho-hum or it's half-baked, and, you know, we didn't really hit a spot that really excited customers. Maybe we have customers that love us and they buy our products, and so they keep buying our products, but it's not the same as really delighting them. And so when we think about increasing project value, what we're thinking about is how are we listening to customers, understanding their needs in the workplace, and how are we making products that are just hugely valuable to them? And there's a lot of structure around that we can provide. There's also the one I probably hear the most is project execution, that feeling that projects are late, or projects arrive half done, or projects get finished, but then the manufacturing part isn't really done, so they struggle for 6 months in manufacturing as we work out the kinks. All sorts of issues with project execution, that we want to get projects done on time, we want to get them done on spec, and we want them to be complete all the way through manufacturing, the interfaces to marketing and to sales, so that when that product comes out, we're ready to provide it to our customers. The final one that I don't hear as much about, that I wish I heard more about, honestly, because lean can make such a difference so fast here, is improving product launches. A lot of folks will launch a product, it won't go well. What's the first thing they think? They think, oh, I guess that product wasn't that good. We need to go do a new product. But actually, we know lean techniques that can take a product that's launched, and we can go out and we can do the same kind of problem solving that we do in any other area of lean thinking. We can figure out what's wrong with the launch, and maybe we can't get all of the revenue that we wanted, but we can get a lot. And the thing I love about it is it pays off really quick. It builds confidence in the organization for lean thinking. People see it works. And so I always encourage people, if you have a product that you've launched and it hasn't gone well, think of that as an early place that you could be applying lean. But this is at an annual level. Now think about it at a monthly level. So at a monthly level, maybe one time we would come in, do an innovation assessment. We do that a lot for folks. We come in, we meet the organization, meet the people, see the talent, and understand where people are. We can offer advice on organizational planning, on, are you staffed up? For example, one I come across all the time is people are doing projects. We have to compare their project management capability with the aspirations to manage projects. For example, if you have complex projects, but you don't have trained project managers, that's always a red flag. That's at least worth looking more into. And those are the sorts of things we can do to help at an organizational level in innovation. And then, of course, there's a creation of metrics. Lean is a very scientific, a very hypothesis and experimentally driven type of thinking, and we have to have metrics. We have to be able to measure what we're doing and how it worked. Finally, we go into creating and modifying a business tool system. So Lean Focus has a business tool system, but it's not perfect for your company. It's not perfect for any company. And so what we do what we want to do is find what's the business tool you need. How do we bring it on board to solve the problems that you're dealing with today? And then how do we customize it for your business? So if you're building automobiles or you're building medical implants, you're going to have a very different set of needs, but you're still going to be in the same set of tools. We just need to find the tool that is the answer for the issues that you're suffering from today. Install that tool, get that benefit, and then just go on a lifelong mission to continually improve. The bad news about lean is it's never done. Like learning, you're never finished getting better. You never improve to perfect. The good news is every step is profitable. And so we put in one tool, we derive profit from it, we take the profit from that tool and we invest it in the next. And we do that again and again and again, and the organization gets stronger. So much stronger that I can tell you from my personal experience that after about 2 years, you hardly recognize the organization. I've experienced it time and again where you look at what you were as an organization before lean, you bring lean thinking to innovation, you look back 2 years and you think, I can't believe we were ever like that. You're working on problems that are so much more complex than what you started on. It's a journey like that. You don't feel it while it's happening, but you feel it when you look back. The last thing I want to mention about lean, I know I'm taking a long time on this slide, but I really want to focus on this slide so you'll understand how lean is different from other ways of thinking about innovation. And problem solving is probably the single most different way. Most people in innovation, they're a bunch of smart people, right? You're generally full of scientists and engineers and product marketers that have, they've been top of what they've done for years, and they come in, they're really smart folks, but they're not good problem solvers. So what do we mean to be a good problem solver? Well, there's really two elements of good problem solving. The first is what we call daily management, and you see, I always put it in quotes because in innovation, most of our meetings are weekly or maybe twice a week. It's rare that we meet daily, but we borrow that term from the factory floor, so where they really do meet daily, so we keep it. But really, it's generally weekly. And what we do is we make a hypothesis. So think scientifically, this is what we think is going to happen. I'm going to start to build this product. It's going to take 9 months. Okay, every week, let's measure. How are we doing towards that 9-month goal? When we get off track, that's when we need problem solving. So think about daily management as tracking. Are the actual results following my hypothesis? And problem solving is what you do when the answer to that is no. You stop, go back, figure out what didn't I understand, and that's how you learn. And so these are the 3 areas where lean thinking and innovation cross. And so it is solid, pure lean thinking. But it's not to the factory floor. It's truly applied to innovation to make projects more successful, products more successful, and people who are in product development more successful and help them grow in their careers. So that's my long slide. The thing I want to say is, back up in the slide before, I talked about we import business systems. So let me actually go up and show you the slide. Sorry, one more time. This business tool selection. This is this cycle that just goes on and on indefinitely. These are the tools we can pick from. So at Lean Focus, this is our complete, well, I shouldn't say complete. I don't know that anything on the planet is complete, but let's call it comprehensive tool set for innovation. It starts all the way back from identifying that new segment that you want to serve, and it goes all the way out to launching and control and making sure that you launched and you were successful. And to all those R&D people and scientists out there that will say, that's not my job. And I've heard this a lot from engineers and scientists. It's not my job whether the product sells or not. My job is just to get it out there, and then other people take care of commercial success. I want to ask you to think again. If you sell a product and people don't purchase it, what good has your product done? And if people don't purchase your product, it's because they don't find value in it. And which means you're spending an awful lot of your energy creating products people don't find value in. I want to encourage every engineer, and as I always do, every engineer, every scientist, every software developer out there, get involved in the commercial success of your product. That doesn't mean you have to go out and knock on doors and sell it, but be part of figuring out what the issues are when products don't do well, because you're going to learn so much about how the world really works and how people really use your products. It's going to improve you and how you practice your craft. So that's, and today we're just going to talk about one piece of the puzzle. So I want you to think about how much we've narrowed in, right? We talked about lean thinking across the entire organization, and then we applied it to innovation, and now we're taking one tool and we're going to talk about that. And that's what the rest of today's talk is about, is project requirements Kaizen. And why are we doing this? What's the problem? Well, the sad truth is that product development is a disappointment for most organizations. Most organizations, if you ask the financial people or the business people, are you getting out what you thought you would be getting out for the amount you're putting in? At least in my experience, most of the time the answer is no. We wind up doing Me Too products. We wind up just barely keeping up with cannibalization. We wind up getting products that are halfway done that have to go in for a second cycle of launch prep, and a whole bunch of other products get pushed out while we go fix the problems from the last project. And we disappoint customers, we miss revenue targets, we waste a lot of energy of the commercial team. I don't know how many of you on the phone are in a commercial team, but if you've ever had an engineering group come to you and say, look, this will be ready on October 10th. Don't worry, get everything ready, and you go do all the work. You get all of the assets ready. You get the training events planned. You get the promotions planned. You get the website changed, and then you find out 6 weeks ahead the product's going to be 2 months late. I don't know if that's happened to any of you. It's happened to most commercial people. And I would say for the technical people, guess what happens next time you tell people you'll have a product on October 20th? You get this, we'll see, when it gets here, it gets here. And so, and think also of the sales team who's gone and taken training that they won't be able to use for 4 months. And so that whole, there's a lot of wasted energy of the commercial team, and it also gets the commercial team to where they only are in the seeing is believing, which isn't good, which means that inserts more delay in getting our future products to our customers. And you leave the door open for competitors. You go out, you show this new thing that people need, you demonstrate it, and then you can't fulfill it, which now has people looking at your competitors. So late projects create so much waste for your company. And of course, late projects exceed budget. When you have to do something twice, it just costs more. And so, at least according to the survey that's shown here, we find that there's a huge difference in companies that use proven management processes. And in another survey, when asked what are the 5 top reasons for failure in a project, you can see the 5 that are listed here. And for today, we're going to really be talking about the 3 that you see pointed out with those golden arrows. So, while there are 5, and instantly the numbers don't add to 100% because people were allowed to pick up to 3. But when you look at the top 5 reasons for project failures, change in project objectives, which happens a lot when you have a poorly defined project, inaccurate requirements, which happens a lot when you have half-baked projects going into development, and poor communication, which happens every time things get chaotic and start changing and we start discovering things have to move, and then all of a sudden the communication never can meet the need. And so when we think about product requirements Kaizen, what we're trying to do is lock down what the definition is. I mean, how many of you, let's say you're thinking about buying a house and you're having negotiations with the owner and you haven't come to an agreement. How many of you would be foolish enough to move into that house before the contract is worked out? That's what we do when we put half-baked projects into development. We go ahead, make the commitment, say we're going to do it, we're going to work it out later, and then once you find out there's problems, they are so hard to correct. You know, for example, we need twice as many resources as we thought we needed now that we planned it carefully. And the boss is like, I don't have twice as many resources to give you. Now what? And so you wind up with problems that really just can't be solved or can't be solved in any kind of reasonable way, or maybe they're solved, but at the expense of other important things. And so getting a great contract on a house is a great way to avoid conflict when you buy a house. Getting a great definition on a project is a great way to get success, to start yourself off for success in project execution. I'm going to pause here for a little bit and talk about symptoms, problems, and root causes. And so when you think about symptoms, these are things that are obvious and you feel them. I'm tired, I feel bad, I have cold chills. There's a problem, quantifiable, I have a fever, and then there's a root cause. I have a perforated appendix that has to be removed, or these problems aren't going away. Root causes are hidden, but they're the only things that are actionable. So when we think about root causes of project failure and how they relate to project requirements Kaizen, and for the group in the room, finally, we're to a slide you haven't seen in a little bit. So what are the things that, what are the things? Systemic project slips, changing priorities, scope creep. How many times have we talked about scope creep this week? It comes up all the time. Everywhere I go, people talk about scope creep. You know, I've never bought a house where there was scope creep. I never bought a house and then I said like, hey, I thought there was another room included here. And so, but it happens all the time in projects. And so what's the problem that comes out is we wind up with a lot of late projects and a lot of projects that come out half done, which is really just another way of saying a late project. I know in the software world, a lot of people are very attuned to, hey, it's not that my project is late, it's just that I push a story into the next release. Sorry, your project is late. We're not delivering features to the customer that we plan to, and that's what defines late. Not whether, so we can't get a project partway done and release it and say it's not late. What are the root causes that we want to treat? We want to eliminate, we want to get consensus around the scope of the project at the beginning. We want to have a single point of truth for how we're going to track plan actual gap. We want to have, one of the other problems is we have a lack of means to communicate change in real time so that whenever there's a change, it's chaotic. People come in from all sides. Sales is calling engineering, marketing is calling sales. The boss is talking to the head of R&D. There's no organized way to communicate change, and that creates a lot of confusion at handoffs. And what does confusion at handoffs cause? It causes projects to be late. And then every time projects are late, there's more explaining, there's more status meetings, there's more updates, there's more excuses, more time spent explaining why a project's late, which then of course comes out of time to work on the project. I want to just take 1 second and point out that this way of thinking about innovation is what we do at every step. So every single tool we work on, we think about what are the problems and what are the root causes, and there are lots of them, and I'm not going to read through all these, but I just want to tell you guys this is very specialized for this tool. But each time we're thinking about a tool, we're thinking about what are the root causes we're addressing. That's the only way we can know we're being successful in applying a tool. So value and waste, and lean thinking, everything we do is either value or waste. So you put in a lot of effort every day. Some part of your day creates value, something that really is meaningful for customers, and some part is waste, doesn't do anything for anybody. Waste, as you guys can see here, waste is a villain. It's frustrating. It's large. Most lean consultants believe that waste is about 80 to 90% of our day, because there are some, I already mentioned several sources of waste just in defining a project. You can imagine how many there are. It's hidden. Of course it's hidden. If you saw it, you'd get rid of it. I always walk in with the assumption that when there's waste, people don't see it. When there's waste, people see, they get rid of it. But we're like fish in water. We don't realize how much waste is around us because it's always been this way. It's systemic. It's always around us. And most waste is caused by good people trying to do the right thing. And it's not that there are malicious actors causing tons of waste in product development. Most people are trying to do the right thing, and it's so destructive to what we want to do and what our customers need. So the typical thing, if we're having problems, we just try harder. This is a picture of what it looks like to try harder. The boss comes in and yells, or the customer comes in and yells, and now we're going to work a Friday night or a Saturday, and we're going to push, and we're going to try to get this problem fixed by just trying harder. And when that effort goes up, the value does go up, and we are able to speed things up, but the waste goes up too because we haven't improved the system. In lean thinking, we want to cut waste so that value is going up without having to put in extra hours. And of course, naturally, as people get more engaged in work and they see more success, they're going to work more, but that's not our goal. Our primary goal is to get rid of waste so that we can put our energy into creating things of value for our company and our customers. And innovation has tons of waste. It's just tough to see. So I have a little picture here that just, you think that there's not waste, but here's my favorite, because I got caught in this one not that long ago. We got a product very late. We showed it to application engineering, and application engineering told us how foolish we were in a couple of areas. And we were deep into the project before we pulled them in. So there's a great area where we could have brought in another person from another area, and we didn't do it. There's a source of waste and innovation. There are tons of them. Let's get into product requirements Kaizen. What are we talking about here? So a product requirements Kaizen, what are the problems we're looking at? And these are really the big four in projects that are struggling. One of them is having moving goalposts. So if you've ever been an engineer working on a project and you're on time, and then all of a sudden somebody inserts something new, you know the frustration. I thought I was on time, now I'm in chaos, now I'm losing. Conflicting requirements that haven't been thought out, and so you might have requirements for, let's say, speed and cost, that you can't get them both at the same time, and we didn't think through that at the beginning, or cost and look. Scope creep, you can see, is the fourth one. That's probably the single biggest one we're directly taking on. And then confusing business cases, because if we don't understand the business case, how do you make decisions as you navigate the normal storms that are going to happen? Every project sets out assuming things are going to be perfect. Then you always hit some kind of storm. How do you navigate that storm? Having a clear business case at the outset is one of the great components of it. So how do we solve this problem? Well, think of having an event, like a 3 or 4 day event, just before we kick off a project. So imagine you're getting ready to start a project. Maybe that project is a $500,000 project or a $5 million project. Maybe it's even small, maybe it's a little smaller or larger. But before we kick it off, we want to have a clear contract, just like buying that house. Because the last thing I want is to be in an argument with the owner of the house after all my stuff is in there. And so we want to have before we jump in, we want to have a clear contract between the business owners and the people doing the work. And the question is, what's the business going to invest in terms of time and people and capital and expense? And what is the product going to deliver in terms of when will things be ready, and what do we expect revenue to be when we grow? And that's a basic contract on return on investment in innovation. And I'm always stunned at how rarely this is done. People do this in the factory with $10,000 investments, and I've seen it where people don't do it hardly at all with $2.5 million investments in projects. So the first question is, let's get down what we're going to invest, and then let's be very clear about what we think this is going to deliver, and then let's understand the return on investment, and then let's track that like crazy so we understand if we meet those goals. So I call it a contract, but it's essentially, and you guys will see it, it'll be the definition of the project and the requirements, and going through great detail to make sure it's clear. I will tell you, this is not the most exciting Kaizen there is. Not a ton of fun. It's really very detailed, understanding what the product has to do, what we're going to apply to it. It's one of the very diligent parts of engineering, but you do it because it sets you up for success. Yeah, if you don't mind my parallel of the home contract, I don't think it's very much fun to read a contract when I buy a house either, but I do it. You need to spend that work. So I want you to think, we talk a lot about value propositions, but I want you guys to think about value propositions a little differently than normal. So a normal value proposition is, how is my customer going to benefit from my product? So my customer is going to buy a product from me. Let's say that you're selling something to a doctor, or you're selling something to a big box store, or you're selling something to a factory. You want to ask a certain set of questions. What's the need that they have? How does this product fulfill that? How are they going to make money from it? In other words, if they buy this thing for $10,000 or $100,000, how do they make money from it? You know, I've done a lot of work in the medical business, and a doctor is always asking that question. You're going to sell me this new thing that's going to help patients. That's really cool. Now, how am I going to make money? You know, well, you know, are you going to charge more? Are you going to get more? Are you going to get more patients coming in? You know, what is the mechanism? What's the monetization? You need to know. So many people stop their value prop at our solution and say, what's the value prop? Well, ours is better. It's cool. It works well. But think deeper. Think about customer monetization. Think about what jobs the customer has to do with this product, and then think about, you know, and then think about how the customer, you know, what's the return. You know, what's their overall return as they invest in this project? What's their return? But you know, what I'd like you to think about is, let's look at the value prop internally. So think about, I want you to ask the same question, but instead of asking the people who are buying your product, ask the people who are funding your project. Because in a sense, the leadership team at your company, they are the customers for your project idea. You have a project idea, you think it's really cool, you need to sell it to them. What's the value prop for them? Well, the customer unmet need in our solution doesn't really change, right? Whatever it is you're selling, it's the same thing. But what's our monetization? How do we convert? You know, are we selling? You know, are we selling these things? You know, is this software that people are going to expect for free that just helps us sell things, or is this software I can sell for a subscription, or is this software I can sell for a single price? How am I going to monetize this product? The second question is, you know, what are our jobs to be done? What are all the things that we have to do to get this product out the door? And it's a long list. And then finally, what's the return? What's the overall return? Like I said a moment ago, that question for people who are developing products, what is the return? You have such an interest, if you're a developer or if you're a product marketer, you have such an interest in getting specific on this, because the more you can show that your work is bringing financial return to the company, the more resources you're likely to get as you go out in future projects. So it's really in your interest to develop great products, and it's in your interest to make sure that we're measuring how well we are getting a return. You don't want to be in a company where people just put a certain amount of money into R&D because we have to, and we really financially don't know why. So the product requirements Kaizen has a lot of different requirements that come into it, and I want to talk about 3 of them. There are really more than 3. I think if I remember the math right, there's something about 12 on this order, but I want to just talk about the first 3. The first one is the customer value prop, what we just talked about a moment ago. Why does that doctor or factory owner or big box store owner want to buy or sell your product? And so understanding that. The second one is the market design requirements. So in other words, what are the market requirements, which is what does this thing have to do? And then what's the design response? How are we going to do it? And then the third one is just talk about some financial schedules, which are so crucial to capture at that moment before the project starts, because those are going to be our hypothesis, and our project is going to be a grand experiment that's going to last a year to develop, or maybe 2, and then we have to get it out in the market for a year or maybe 2. And so these financial schedules are going to be how we come back and we're able to compare what we actually did to what we thought we were going to do. So few companies keep track of this. This sits on somebody's PC. By the time all this happens, that person might be in a new position or even a new company. Of course, what we're going to be teaching is all this stuff needs to be together in a place that you can find in 30 seconds. Because if we put a hypothesis out there and don't make it, that's okay if we learn from it. It's not okay if we just say, okay, that's all right, let's go do it again. So first off, the customer value prop, I already went through with you guys a little bit, but what does a good customer value prop look like? I can't tell you the number of times that I've gotten a customer value prop and people have shown me 5 key features. 5 key features is not a customer value prop. 5 key features is your solution. It's a tiny part of the value prop. It's the part you're excited about, but we need to start with, what's the customer pain point? Do we understand it? And do we understand it? Can we quantify it? And so, you know, you see me here, I'm giving you guys some examples of customer pain points. I go back to doctors and I think about doctors. What's a customer pain point for a doctor? For example, a lot of doctors, a lot of their patient basis is Medicare. Medicare pays a very low amount to doctors. They don't make a lot. And they're trying to figure out some way to increase revenue. So one of their pain points is they're doing patient visits, but the revenue is not building the business and it's not growing. So that's a pain point, and for doctors, that's an example of a pain point, and that would be one that we would want to address and think about that whenever we're providing something new for doctors. Or if you have a factory, what is the pain point that you're answering? It shouldn't be that your product is better or somehow newer. That's not a pain point. How does your solution do that? So how will my technical promise, how is it that this product is going to accomplish those things? And agree on this as an organization. I can't tell you guys how many times I've talked to marketing groups 6 months before it's time to take the product to market. There's no value prop. Now they're expected to develop marketing assets, go develop brochures and websites, and nobody has a clear understanding of what the product is supposed to bring to the customer or who the primary persona of the product even is. And so they wind up going on a treasure hunt, trying to figure out how to develop literature. The first thing that happens is the literature isn't great. And the second thing that happens is they're frustrated because they're doing a ton of work that they shouldn't have had to have done, because we know all those things when we start the project. We certainly need to know them if we don't know them, because that's how you'd figure out what the requirements for the product are. And then monetization, how are people going to sell this? And how is this going to make it life better for them? And of course, you guys, anybody who's in marketing knows that you spend a lot of energy replacing products that are ebbing away, right? You've got products that are going to decline over time and they have to be replaced. And you have to do that. There's no doubt, but that's not going to be the kind of exciting growth that's going to get the kind of exciting investment in R&D and in product marketing and in software development that a lot of us would like to see. So, how are we bringing things that excite the customer, not just get them to where they'll just hang on and keep buying the same old thing because we made a few tweaks. And then the fifth thing I want to point out is reasons to believe. This one is one that's almost always overlooked. People think that you're going to go out and tell a customer, if you buy our product, this will happen. Now, why would somebody believe you? Do you think that the person you're talking to has never been told a story that didn't come true before? Why would they believe you? There can be lots of reasons. Your company may have a fantastic reputation, and that might be enough. And if you're in that spot, that's wonderful. But if not, what are you going to do? What if you're a small company that people haven't heard of? Well, you're going to need trial cases. You're going to need if you're in the medical business, you're going to need clinical trials that are convincing. If you're in industrial business, you're going to need pilot customers that are willing to provide testimonials for you. I mean, so you've got to be able to go out and maybe publish in trade magazines. Somehow you've got to be able to demonstrate why people should believe you. Maybe you need to get a patent on it. You say it's really new. Everybody says their stuff is new. Well, the patent office says it's really new. And so think about reasons to believe. Don't think that when you tell somebody something, they automatically accept what you're saying at 100%. And then the last thing to think about is, what is your sustainable differentiation? I've seen so many products fail at this point. So we'll spend a lot of money, all the other things will line up, but we don't have a sustainable differentiation in this product. And what's going to happen? We're just going to, I remember I worked at a company where this happened a lot. We would develop a product. There was a larger company that would just come and develop a product that was similar. And in about 2 years, they would just take our business because we didn't have differentiation. We didn't have intellectual protection on it. They had a wider reach than we did. And so we didn't have a sustainable differentiation. And so, how few people think, it surprises me how few people spend time thinking about that. How is it that this is going to really work and generate revenue at our company for 3 or 5 years? What makes us different that others can't overcome easily? It doesn't have to be a patent, but it's got to be something hard to overcome if you're going to make a lot of money and not expect people to come in and try to get their share. I want to move on now to product requirements document. So think about a product requirements, like what are all the things this product has to do? Some are simple, right? Like you have to meet, for example, if you're doing something that plugs into the wall, it's got to meet UL. So those are simple ones. But many of them are things like, I have a customer, I've gone through and looked at their workflow, I've really gone and studied their workflow, and I see they have a gap in their workflow, and this product requirement has to close that gap. So let me just give you an example from my past. We had a product we were selling to a big box store, and we wanted to understand the workflow that they were dealing with. So we actually had people put on the blue vest, or engineers and product marketers, professionals, go put on the blue vest or the orange vest and go work at those stores for days, and then go work at them in other countries or the equivalent in other countries. We understood the customer workflow. We understood that our people had been yelled at by customers who were angry at what happened. They had customer empathy. And so that ability to really go out and understand the customer workflow is so crucial to being able to define what a product has to do. I've worked with lots of companies where engineers don't feel like that's their job. Product marketers will call a few people, some salesmen on the phone, get some VOC, versus actually going out and living the life of people using your products. I want to encourage you, whatever you do with this Kaizen, or whether you use this Kaizen or not, go do that. Go stand beside or sit beside people who are using your products. You will learn so much so fast. I remember another story that a friend of mine told me about going and observing doctors, and there were doctors that were wearing very high intensity glasses with lights on them. So you guys have been to where doctors performing some sort of procedures, got lights, they're magnifying lights, high intensity light, and they had a battery in their pocket, and the battery wire went up to the light to power the light. And the doctor didn't say much about it, but the fellow who's telling me the story went and just observed a doctor for some time and watched the doctor lean over, get the wire caught in the exam table, and have the whole thing pulled off his head and look very foolish in front of the patient. Now there's a pain point. Having that wire that's on your head that makes it hard for you to move around. And so by understanding the workflow, they were able to create a product that had the battery in the glasses. And it was a huge hit because it was a real pain point for doctors, and they cured it. And so think about understanding, really being able to empathize with your customers and understanding what they go through. If you're not out there with them, you don't understand what they're going through. And there are several other things in here. What are customers expecting for service and repair? I remember meeting customers who were so angry that you feel their fist coming through the phone because they were trying to return something and they had tried like 6 times and couldn't do it. And it was so complicated because the way we sold things in batches, and they bought 10 but wanted to return 8, and everything got lost in our distribution center. So think about that kind of painful experience that will have you going to another supplier next time. And so, what do customers expect? And so what we want to capture in product requirements before we start a project is, what are all the requirements that our customers expect? And this can be a long document, right? This can be 20 or 30 pages long. This is what customers want to see happen. This really defines the product. And we understand what it is we understand what we have to do, and allows us to plan carefully. And so at Lean Focus, what we've done is develop a template that basically we go through, and it's an Excel sheet, so you guys know, I don't know what the limit is on the number of lines in an Excel sheet, but I know it's really long. But we basically put one line in for every kind of requirement, and we have the product marketing team define what the requirement is, and we go right over to the right, and the design team says this is how we're going to solve it. And so we know with great discipline what customers expect, and we know precisely how we're going to fulfill it. Or if we don't, we have a place where we can mark the status here, no solution found, and we can then use the time to go make sure all those gaps are closed before we start the project. You don't want to be closing that gap 60 days before launch. And so we call this the PRD MRD, or the Product Requirements Marketing Requirements document. But the idea is, if I have this and it's diligently done, I know what this product has to do. And finally, just before I close up here, I'm going to talk a little bit about financial schedules. I see I'm running out of time. I might have spent a little bit too much time on that slide about lean and innovation. That's a new one. But the idea is that we are very clear about recording entire financial schedules. So what we teach at Lean Focus is that the development team needs to create a development schedule that's measured in dollars, and we need to convert that to year. We need to look at what we expect in revenue, and that needs to enable our financial people to be able to build up an ROI over a 3 or 5 year period, and it all needs to be absolutely clear. It doesn't mean that the numbers are right, but they're clear, and it doesn't mean that they're perfect, but they're our best estimate. And this is now the document that becomes our hypothesis. We can come back to this 1 year or 2 years later, and we can see how we did. And we can do this on every project we do, and we can start to understand where our successes and failures are and problem solve on how we are selecting our projects and defining them. So, how have we solved the problems that we've done here? Well, failed to build, we talked about failing to build a consensus. Well, through the process, we've used a week and gotten together and looked at every detail of this product with a group of people sitting around the room who are going to go implement that project. Everybody understands what they're in for. The project manager hasn't set us some schedule that people are introduced to and told they have to go do. They signed up for it. It's a team. It's not one person telling a bunch of other people what to do. The second thing is that we have a single point of truth, which is we have a workbook that has the details. We have a way to manage change now. So scope creep, what is scope creep? Well, you've got to go change the product workbook. And when you change the workbook, now you've got to go through an approval process because that document is owned by somebody. And so scope creep, I'm not going to say scope creep goes to zero. We always learn things and we adjust. And I don't think it's ever wise to turn your mind off to new information that comes to you, but scope creep goes down by a factor of 10 because everything's very clear on what you have to do to get it approved. It's not easy, and so people do it. In terms of confusion at handoffs are very clear because we all sat and talked about what we were going to do and when we were going to do it. And in terms of the ability to communicate, like I said, the workbook is how we communicate to finance, to the leadership team, to the development team, to the sales group. All that data is there. The entire story is in one place. All the stakeholders have access to it. So we believe that the result of that is you're going to have projects getting to market on time. In my personal experiences, I've seen projects move from 30% on time to 85% on time by making these changes. I'm not going to tell you that 100% of your projects will be on time. It doesn't happen because every now and then something comes up that's really hard to deal with. But if you can get 85% of your projects on time or 90%, you're doing great. The ones that are late are a little bit late. You're not dealing with projects, half your projects are late and some of them a year late, which, I hear lots. And what happens, our symptoms completely change. So what are some next steps if you're interested in learning more about this? You have a project you're getting ready to get kicked off. We can help you with that. You can download this and talk a little bit more about it, and you can contact me or Lean Focus. If you like this sort of discussion, I do a webinar every month, at least one. And I have a newsletter on LinkedIn where I talk about these issues, and working on there'll be another release in the next day or two on the innovation journey. And there's a couple of books there that you might find fascinating, or Christmas is just around the corner. You might want to be thinking about the family. At Lean Focus, we have lots and lots of webinars on lots of topics, innovation and lots of others. You can go to our site. And here it is. And my closing thought is, I love Eli Goldratt. He was one of the first people that applied lean thinking to innovation with his critical chain project management. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I love it where he starts, people are good. You listen, and I've been here this week, and I've even with the group I'm with, and I'm looking at folks right now, and there's been conflict, right? And I understand there's real differences of opinion, but I always start, people are good, conflict can be removed. And every situation, no matter how complex it looks like in the beginning, is exceedingly simple. And you guys can read the other three, but it's very encouraging. I love innovation because I really believe what you see on the page here. Of course, I love number 5. Every person can reach a full life potential. I know, Damon, I think you're on the phone here, and you might have some questions. I'm not, Damon, you and I have never done a webinar where I started it, so I don't know if, do I?
No, I got it, I'm ready to roll.
All right, super, I can hear you, go ahead.
All right, great job, George. So I got several questions here. Let's start with the first one. If we do this at our design center, who should we invite and how long should we allow for this type of Kaizen event?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the first thing I will get from people when they say, oh, you want me to have yet another meeting? I don't want another meeting in my life. So people are sensitive to that. Who needs to be at the event? I would say who needs to be there is the core team of the project. So who are the people that are who is the team that's taking on the project and delivering it? That's the group of people that needs to be in the room. So the people who are making the commitments need to be the people who are fulfilling the commitments. In terms of how long should it last, there's a huge range. I've done these in as little as a day, if it's a simple project. I've had them where they take an entire week if it's a complex project. So I would say if you're talking about a $2 to $5 million project, you better be thinking about a week and with a lot of pre-work. I think if you're talking about a $60,000 or $100,000 project, a day and a half can be plenty. And
Great.
Damon, before you ask again, let's check around there. Anybody around the room have a question? Yeah, no? Everybody's good here. Go ahead, Damon.
Okay, we currently use agile software development in our organization. Does this process work for software development as well?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll make a word about agile software development. So agile thinks in terms of releases. And so I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with agile, but basically you take each feature that a customer needs, very much like that Excel sheet I showed you a few pages ago. But in agile, you make something that looks like that called a story, but it's a very similar idea. And then you pack a bunch of those together and do a release. But those releases have to be, if you're working with a product that's timed with anything else going on, Damon, like whether it's with hardware or even with marketing or with sales, you have to deliver features on time. It's not just a release. And the reason I mention this is because in Agile, it does happen. A lot of people will say, well, it's fair to take a story and push it into the next release, but not if there's a sales team that's been training on that feature, because they're going to wind up being disappointed. So I think it is a fit. I think like I said, that Excel sheet that I showed you in the beginning, that would be a place to capture the stories, and those would automatically then go into the backlog of any Agile system. And that would be part of the story of how you're building a product. And like I said, for those who are doing products that have no hardware, you might say, well, I don't need to worry about that because I'm software only. But what about your sales team? What about your marketing team? What about the team that's taking these to different regions of the world, and you have to get, you may have registration or you have compliance issues. So you do need to remain in time with other parts of the organization, unless you're doing something purely internal, like maybe you would do at an IT team. Staying linked up and having clear milestones for the project, it's important for the project to be successful.
Thanks, George. Next question. Early on, you showed a picture of how lean thinking works with innovation. How does this fit in that picture? I assume by this, they mean the project requirements, Kaizen.
Yeah, let me check. So I know that slide. I think that's the one I maybe spent about 5 minutes too long on and cut the question short. Sorry about that. Let me just come up. I think the picture they're talking about is this one.
Yeah, that one.
And yeah, it actually applies at in every level. So for example, if I want to increase my project value, one way to increase my project value is make sure my projects are defined so well they execute well. So if I'm having problems getting products out to market that perform poorly, it could be in a strategic initiative to get products that perform better. It could be, and probably the most natural fit is for it as a business tool selection. You might say, hey, the last 6 projects we've done, we have really had a ton of scope creep. We've had a hard time managing it. We have project managers change. We don't have any way to keep straight what happens when a new project manager comes in. And you might say, I want to integrate this business tool into my business system. And then finally, I'll say it also fits into daily management, because what you're creating here is your overall hypothesis for the whole project about how you're going to incorporate features, how long it's going to take you to develop this project. And so this becomes this workbook becomes your hypothesis. And now you can measure against this every week. How am I doing? Where are the gaps in what I said I was going to do last March and how I'm doing today? And now when I see gaps, I have the opportunity to come in, do a problem solve, and close those gaps. That is the most unnatural thing for engineers, as far as I can tell. That they don't think of the world that way. They tend to think of, oh, my project slipped, too bad, it's going to be late. Projects are always late. This is a great way to say, no, as soon as we see a gap, we're going to jump in and we're going to actually fix it.
All right, George, we're at time. So as usual, great job. Well done. I learned a lot, and hopefully the participants did as well. And as a reminder, this recording of this presentation will be sent to your email inbox. Make sure you check the spam folder just in case you do not receive it within a day or two. Thanks, George, and everybody have a great rest of your day and your week. Bye now.
All right, thanks, everybody.